Call the Fort Myers Beach Audit Committee to order, and it's April 8th, 2024. And the time is 1:35. Okay, do we have to aye on this? No. Okay, let's do the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. Let's do roll call. Jeff Taylor resigned, and his chair needs to be elected. Jack Leeson is present. Barb Puffer is president. Brian Thomas is unable to attend. Debbie Dalton is present. Marianne Shealy is present. Mike Hauser is out, not present. Scott Safford is out and not present. And we're waiting for Scott to come to us by Zoom. Can we go ahead without him? Okay, we're going to go ahead without Scott. He's not present. Okay, and we're on to reorganization. We're going to nominate for chair, or who would like to be?
We have to first
Oh.
That comes after the reorganization. Yeah, that's okay.
Are there any nominations for chair?
Anybody being?
Yeah. Can we do a temporary chair?
Can they do a temporary chair? Okay.
Jack, can you continue until we have more people?
I think it's up to you. So if you'd like Jack to continue, that would be up to you.
Well, at least until we have a bigger quorum.
Yep.
Unless 20.
What? How would you one of you ladies like to be in charge?
I work full time. I can't do
new.
this.
I don't know if I would.
Yeah, I feel too new.
Yeah, I think Brian would be good. He seems to have a strong background and really knew what was going on, but
Can't nominate him.
yeah, I'm just saying, I think he would be good, but we talked to him.
You could postpone this until the next meeting.
That's what I was suggesting.
We'll continue.
Can we, unless you want to do it, Jack.
I'm a neophyte at this stuff, but at this item. But you could always fire me, right? Resign. Well, I think let's wait till next time. Fairness to everybody, okay? And then, likewise for nomination for vice chair, we'll wait till we have more people present. Approval of the minutes. Who votes? How's it?
I
need
move
a-
to approve for that.
Second.
That's Dutton.
Okay, hold it. When do we write?
Dutton approves to approve.
Dutton approve. And who seconded it?
Buffer did.
Barb, okay. I did write it down last time, so. Okay. Should we move on then, Joe?
Now you would have to vote.
All right.
You have to vote on whether to approve the minutes.
Oh, okay, I vote.
All in favor? All in favor? Aye. Aye.
Okay, Barb first for the minute, Deborah first. Ooh,
Well,
I moved and it was approved.
wait, hold it, let me get the sheet here.
yeah. So they just need to vote, and I think they already.
Okay, we vote to adopt it for minutes and all approved, okay?
Yes.
Okay. All?
Well,
We'll worry about it later, okay?
4 out of 6, or sorry, 4 out of 7 would be the
Oh,
total.
4 out of 7?
This 7 is the
We'll
total
write it
number
in.
of committee members.
Who was the motion by?
Me.
Just by
Barb, okay.
Barb.
That one's Deb. Barb seconded.
It's okay,
So
whatever.
Debbie Dutton was the
Okay.
one who,
Debbie, okay.
right, who moved. Her name. I think that's all you have to fill in.
Okay.
Very good.
All. Four. All
I
present.
can ask Amy.
Okay,
how
you
to
deal
fill
with
that
it.
part in. Yes, we'll figure that out.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Items for discussion. We'll
Well,
start.
actually, it's public
Oh,
comment.
public comment. There's nobody here to comment. No public is available. No here. So we will move on. Items for discussion. The finance director report.
Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Joe Onzik, Finance Director. So I'd just like to review, it's only been 3 weeks since we last met, so there's not a lot of changes to report on. Still working with Frankie Kapracek, who was our procurement manager, on obtaining information for the possibilities of replacing our accounting software. I think we've got 3 different vendors identified, and we need to go through the process of actually looking at demonstrations in order for them to provide us with quotes. So that would be the next step that we would go through.
I think Jack has a question.
My question, what systems are these other villages using? Naples, Bonita Springs, and Fort Myers. Are we going to something different? Or if they're using the same system, can't we just jump on the bandwagon and
Well, that is certainly a possibility, and I've reached out to Sanibel, Bonita Springs. I think Cape Coral has a version of it, and they all use the same system. It's the Tyler. It's Tyler is the organization that I forget the exact name of their software, but it's developed by Tyler, maintained by Tyler. They're all very happy with it. I came from Illinois that used it as well. We were very happy with it. My accounting manager also used it where she came from. So it is a common software, and it's the people's experiences so far that we've reached out to. They're happy with it and they recommend it. But we do want to do our due diligence and just explore other options, just in case there might be something that might better fit our needs. So that's the process that we're going through right now.
Now, you say when you do get closer to start evaluating, though, would you have any people from this committee maybe take a look at it too, or is it just going to be people in your team?
No, well, are you interested in seeing the demos? Is that, I
No.
mean, okay.
But I'm asking, do you want anybody? I don't know if there's somebody here who
Oh.
might have more experience with that.
Right, I think Mike Hauser had been volunteered by Jack Taylor, I think a few meetings back, to assist us with it. So I know he's certainly, but anyone else would be welcome to, and we wouldn't make a decision until we had your response to what we would present to you as well, just to make sure that,
Yeah.
it's agreeable to you.
Hey, you may want to just open it up when you decide to set something up.
That would be fine. Okay. Oh, well, that's great. Okay. Well, then that's what we could do when we set up the demo. We can, send out an invitation to all of you, and then who's ever able to participate, you'd be more than welcome to. The fiscal year 2023 audit, we do finally have a beginning date. It's scheduled to begin August 22nd. Possibly a week later, but that's our tentative start date. And the plan is to complete the audit field work by the end of May, and to have the financial statements prepared and the audit completed by the June 30th deadline. So we're working very hard to be prepared for the audit. One of the things that has, just to kind of comment on this, has been very time consuming for us has been the review of the emergency expenditures and just making sure that we have everything in sync with what's being or what will be reported or what has already been reported to FEMA in terms of specific project numbers. That's been very difficult only because some of these project numbers were not assigned until, almost a year later after the expenditures were occurred. So it's trying to go back and kind of recreate things to make sure everything is properly plugged in. And we'll have like a master spreadsheet that has all the individual projects and expenditures that would tie to the general ledger. And so that's our goal. So we have all the detail that's needed for both auditors, for FEMA, and for our purposes as well to be able to track all of these projects and their progress and what reimbursements have been coming in already, what FEMA has obligated or promised to give us, assuming that what we submit to them is truly eligible. So it's just more time consuming than what we expected, and we were shorthanded probably almost an entire year. We had one vacancy, but now that's been filled. That's the senior accountant position, and we have another person who joined us for grants that I think I mentioned last meeting. So with that staff augmentation, we're really starting to move, and progress is being made. So I'm very encouraged by that.
Excuse me, Joe.
Yes.
What is the fiscal year end for the village?
It's September 30th.
September 30th?
Yes.
Okay.
So that's the paragraph about review and allocation of emergency expenditures, and also FEMA public assistance. I just thought you might be interested to know that we did have 37 separate projects that were identified. 11 of them were consolidated, so now we're down to 27 separate projects that we need to track expenditures for. Let's see. And then I have the same list of available funding sources that I provided in my report last month. So there's really nothing new here. It's unchanged, but I wanted to continue to provide that to you.
Joe, I have a question on one of these things.
Sure.
It's the bridge loan.
Yes.
And you say there's legislation extending it for 10 years.
Yes.
Consideration of it being forgiven. So is that proposed? Was it already voted? Are there pending dates?
I haven't had an update on it, so I'm really not sure where the official status is. But I think in discussions with like the town manager and our liaison to the state legislature, there's been much talk between those people at that level that this is what is going to take place. But I don't know that there's anything official yet. I have heard, and I haven't, but we have not been sent the documentation yet that it was already approved to extend it for 2 years. I mean, that we would have 2 years to repay the loan. Right now, our current agreement that we have in writing is for 1 year, so the loan would be expiring June 30th under our copy of the current agreement. But it was approved by legislation to extend it for 2 years, and it's the 10-year portion that I think we're still waiting to hear if that's going to be approved. So it's a little bit confusing in that we don't have up-to-date information on these things. It's just more word of mouth at this point.
Thanks.
Okay. Utility billing. I think I reported to you last time that we had some concerns, and so because we had concerns, I wanted to make sure that you're aware of it. And we were noticing that there was quite a large amount, I think it was like $20,000 at the time, of unapplied payments that was accumulating under utility billing. And as we looked into it, actually it's the utility billing department that looked into it, working with the utility manager and his staff, so jointly looked into it. So what I had the misunderstanding that these were payments that were not associated with particular customers, but they are in fact associated with particular customers, and it's basically overpayments by these various customers that have not been applied to specific invoices. So as they're looking into each one, there's refunds that are due to some of them, and others they'll be working with them to apply those to future billings. So it just takes a little bit of time and research. So I think that'll be cleared up pretty soon. And then we also had about $400,000 of receivable balances that were old, but they're related to properties that, the homes were demolished. There are still the continuation of stormwater fees on the property that were adding to the balances. There's people who moved that were unreachable. So there's different situations depending on the circumstances of the customer. And so what we recommended that the utility department do is to investigate each one of the outstanding balances and provide like an explanation of what the situation is, and then based on that we can categorize them into these various categories of what their situation is. Some of it we may need to just forgive their balances if there's extenuating circumstances, but that would be more of a town council decision, but that would be a consideration. Others we may have to enforce the policies where we would have to actually shut off their water as a last resort if the circumstances warranted and that was truly the way we would have to handle it. And there may have been some overbilling as a result of water leakages that we have to look into, and if that's the case, then we would have to correct the billing. So just depending on the circumstance, we would have to make appropriate adjustments to it. And hopefully the ones that perhaps we've lost touch with, we can somehow figure out how to reconnect with those people, and perhaps they would be willing to pay their balances once they were aware of them. So I think there's just a variety of explanations for the situation that just takes the time to research it, and that's what they're doing now.
Are we accruing for any estimated, loss of collections?
Yes, I want to say when we closed last year, it was like 300,000. So I think what we've accrued for may be close to what we, probably overstating what we'd have to write off, but we're hoping not to have to write off very much. But there is, I think, a substantial accrual for that reason. Okay, and then the financial statements. I apologize. I did find that one error in that last statement for the cash flow that I was trying to provide for you, a cash flow statement of what we've been spending through since Hurricane Ian, and I was wondering why that all the amounts look different. Of course, I did this, late at night when I first ran it, and I couldn't. It was bothering me, and I finally was able to look into it, and I realized when I ran the report, I ran it with the incorrect starting date. So I reran the report, and I provided the updated version at the end of your packet now. So I apologize for that error. It's something I should have caught in the beginning, but I didn't. But otherwise, it's the same set of financial statements that I provided last month. These are through the month of February instead of January. It does take us time, and now that we have more staff, we should be able to do this more quickly. But there are a lot of month-end type things that we need to post it's just not soon enough to provide you an accurate statement, like for the month of March, for example. So February is really the best that we can do at this point. So the first statement is the balance sheet. And then the second one is the revenue and expenditures and changes in fund balances for all the governmental funds. And that's several pages long. So it's all the various line items by fund. There's 10 pages. So the first half, of course, would be the governmental funds. And then the bottom line, so this would, I numbered all the pages in the packet, so it might be easier to keep track of where we're at. So that little page number way at the right-hand side would be the agenda packet number, page number. So on page 14, for example, that shows you the change in the fund balance for this fiscal year through February 29th for the governmental funds. And then if you move on towards page 19, it looks like it'll be, that's the change in net assets for the proprietary funds. So you could see we're actually doing better than you may think, but that's because our expenditures are down as well as our revenues. So we're actually doing fairly well in consideration of that. The cash flows is the same organization. We've got the governmental funds, like on page 20, and on page 21, it would be the proprietary funds. And this is through for the fiscal year ending year to date, February 29th. Then I have, starting on page 22, I've got the revenue and expenditures compared to budget. And so this gives you an idea of where we are according to the budget. Page 23, you could see the total revenues were ahead in comparison to the budget. And how I tried to draw this comparison, just like last month, I just took the number of months. I divided like the annual budget by 12 and multiplied by 5, which is the number of months, to come up with the 5-month average budget, and then compared that to the year-to-date actual, and then the variance as a result of the comparison of those two figures. So in terms of revenue, we're ahead $1.2 million. I think most of that has to do with the fact that we do collect most of our property tax revenue in the first part of the year. So it may be a little bit deceiving in terms of that. Then as you go towards the end of this report, it would be on page 25. And here our expenditures are $1.7 million below, or favorable variance of $1.7 million under what was budgeted so far. So we're actually ahead so far this year at almost $3 million. The next, starting on page 26, is what I tried to do is do the similar comparison, but instead of the 2024 current year budget, I'm comparing it to the 2023 budget, because that budget was prepared before Hurricane Ian. So this represents what we would normally experience pre-hurricane. And so that's like the best representation that we have to see like how our revenues may be doing compared to what we would have had there not been a hurricane. And our revenues at this point year to date are $200,000 below what we normally would have been had there not been the hurricane. So that's the assumption anyway as far as why these revenues are lower than what they otherwise would have been. And then the last, well, not the last, but on page 28 and 29, this is the cash flow statement since Hurricane Ian, and this kind of gives you an idea of where the dollars were spent, the cash dollars were spent. And this is the corrected version that you're looking at in paper. And I did email it out as well, so hopefully those who are looking online have that copy that they can refer to. The next page is the cash investments and loans. It's just an update, the similar format as last time. I think the only thing different here might be that last line, but I think that may have been there last month. That $5 million loan that we received from, this would be the from the state, and this is money up front that we can use on any of the FEMA projects that they had given us kind of a pre-approved list of, that we can then use this loan money to pay for our upfront expenditures, because normally FEMA is on a reimbursement basis. So if we can use this loan money to actually incur the expenses and incur those expenditures, and then when we're reimbursed by FEMA, it would go directly to repaying this loan from the state. And the very last page then is our sample budget calendar. And this is, although it's long, it just pretty much hits the highlights of what we need to focus on in terms of like deadline dates for us in the finance department. And then within each of these, especially like the first few like lines, we'll have individual meetings that will be scheduled, like for with individual department heads and with the town manager to review things, and also with town council members. So during the month of April, we start out by preparing the budget spreadsheets. These are worksheets that we are prepared in the finance department that are then distributed to each of the department heads that they use to fill in what they think they need for the next fiscal year. There's also personnel worksheets and an organizational chart that would represent what they currently have, and then they have an opportunity to make adjustments if they see fit for their requests for next year. The end of April, early May, the town manager is trying to schedule a strategic planning session with the town council. I don't have any details on that yet, but that's in the early stages of planning that. In May, this is where we'll actually be meeting with the department heads and with the town manager in individual meetings to review what they're requesting for their budgets and to make sure it's in line with the expectations and the direction of the town manager, who also is receiving direction from the town council members. June 1st is the date that we expect to receive the tentative property appraisal value from the property appraiser's office. So this will give us an idea, based on that appraised value, of what our property tax revenue may be, and then we can do the calculations dependent upon the millage rate that we choose, whether we choose to leave it the same, to increase it, to decrease it. But we'll have at least that basis on which to calculate what the actual revenue would be in the different scenarios. June 3rd would be the council meeting that we would be striving to present the preliminary general fund budget to, because the month of June is when the maximum millage rate needs to be determined by the town council. And the maximum millage rate is a major funding source for the general fund. And so by having a good idea of what the general fund budget requests are in comparison to what revenue could possibly be generated with various millage rates, we would present that information to the town council with perhaps a few different options for them to consider. And this basically starts the discussion. And by the end of June, the June 17th meeting, this is when they would have to make their final decision on what the maximum millage rate would be. But that still is not setting the rate, it's just setting the maximum. And then in between there's a management planning meeting in which we'd also be discussing in more detail the budget and the fee schedule with the town council members. July 1st, this is when we'd receive a certification of the taxable value, so it's pretty much the final taxable values from the property appraiser. In July 10th is when we need to submit the maximum millage rate that was decided upon by the town council in their June meeting. Town council normally doesn't meet in July, which is why we need to make that decision in June at their June meeting. July 15th is the official deadline that's provided by the town charter for the town manager to present the budget to the town council members. So by then we should have a written version of the budget, I should say a more complete version of the budget, and all the different fund detail that we can then present to the individual town council members in writing. And again, it's really the proposed budget or tentative budget. It's not going to be the final budget, but that gives them an opportunity to see it. In August, there is a capital improvement plan that presumably we will have prepared by then. We've kind of put that on hold last year because of Hurricane Ian, and we were really focused on the restoration and the rebuilding, and there really wasn't any new initiatives that we could consider. And we were still not even sure like where the funding sources would be. So we put that on hold. This year, there may be an opportunity to begin a longer term plan. And this is typically like a 5-year capital improvement plan. So this will be new for me to be involved with. And we'll see what the town council is thinking, what the town manager is thinking, to see if we would have something that we could provide. But August would be the time that it would be considered by the LPA, and normally in past years is considered by the LPA. In August 6th or 7th, those would be, if we follow the pattern that we had last year, we would be meeting individually with council members to present the budget to them so that they would have opportunity to answer or to have their questions answered by us, and then maybe make suggestions for things. And then August 8th would be the management planning meeting, which would be another opportunity to present the budget and have more of an extended discussion on any of those items if they so choose. And then September is when we have to have our first public hearing, and that date will depend on when other municipal organizations or taxing bodies have their meetings. So for example, the school district, because we can't have a meeting at the same time as one of the other taxing bodies. So we have to see when we get closer to that date, what date we can actually hold the public hearing. And then there's a final public hearing towards the end of September in which the final millage rate and the budget would be adopted. And then the last days are just more days when we have to do our technical filing with the property appraiser and the tax collector and the Department of Revenue. So I know I've covered a lot. I just wanted to kind of give you an idea of how this is all laid, what all this information is. If you have any questions about anything, I'd be happy to try to answer them.
That was very thorough. Thank you.
You're welcome. I'm glad they're helpful. My goal is to be as transparent as possible so there's no surprises. And as we continue to work with this, I think the information you should start seeing improvements. Like, for example, this list of funding sources that's on page 2 of my report. I think what I'd like to do is show like the total amount and then the total amount of expenditures we've already had, what is planned, so you can see more of a summarized view of each of those funding sources and how they'll be spent, rather than just a written explanation.
I think these meetings get easier as they go on.
Well, hopefully. But that concludes my report. And then I think on the agenda, let's see, we've got, I can give you an update on the forensic audit. I was hoping Scott would be here because he participated in a discussion with me. I have to find my notes on that, I'm sorry. Okay, so this last Friday, I had reached out prior to last Friday to our external auditors, Malden and Jenkins, and I reached out to the managing partner, Wade Sansbury, and we were able to schedule a call with him and myself and Scott Safford, and we had that call last Friday, March 5th at 1 o'clock, and we presented this request that Scott and I were directed by town council and by the audit committee to reach out to him and to ask his opinion as to whether or not he thought it would be advisable to conduct a forensic audit and just to obtain his opinion. So just to try to carefully summarize what he said, because I don't want to misquote him. So to the best of my recollection, this is what was said, and I was hoping Scott could confirm this, because I certainly don't want you to just simply take my word for it alone. But since we do not have any specific evidence of where fraud may have occurred, it was Mr. Sansbury's opinion that a forensic audit would be very time-consuming and costly to review everything. Since the regular financial statement audit that was conducted by his firm over the past few years did not reveal any indications of theft, of fraud, of malfeasance, it was Mr. Sandberry's opinion that it would be very unlikely that any evidence of fraud would be found in a forensic audit. He stated that if fraud did occur, it would more likely have been the result of some type of collusion with an outside party, like where the evidence of that activity would not necessarily be present in the town's records. And like, for example, it's possible that there may have been collusion with a contractor, the result of which an employee may have received a kickback from a contractor for having been awarded a contract. But evidence of such an occurrence could only be found by auditing the contractor's or the employee's personal records, which is something that a forensic audit could not do. So with those things in mind, it was Mr. Sandberry's opinion that it would not be in the best interest of the town to pursue a forensic audit, and that it would be throwing good money after bad, which coincidentally is the same phrase that our town attorney used when she answered that question at, I think it was the second or third to the last town council meeting, in which she was asked her opinion on that. So he's not advising that we have one. He said if something changes, and that if we were to find some type of evidence, then that of course would be different, and then it should be reconsidered at that point. But I was hoping Scott could confirm that that was the case.
How do we end this charade, or can we end this? Because I think agree with the auditor's not going to go anywhere unless it's a witch hunt. They're just wasting a lot of money. And what will forensic audit prove? I agree with you with best
I
practices.
think, right, it's in our minutes, and I got the sense last time that we all kind of felt we didn't probably need it, but we ought to check with the auditor, which you've done. And the lawyer, if I remember right, the town attorney said the statute of limitations, was only 2 years.
Yes.
So then we're in the middle of all this hurricane stuff. It seems like an almost impossible, certainly expensive task.
I feel whatever, wasn't it someone from the public was asking about it, so I feel the town did what they were supposed to, which by asking the auditors, and should be fine, right?
Yeah, I would just vote to end this.
And, yeah,
I do
But
have
I don't know how
I
we
have
do
a
it.
suggestion, though, for another countermeasure or something we can do to double check is like some kind of hotline, some kind of email address or something like that. Maybe not an email, because then you can tell who's coming from, but something that could be anonymous where people can call and leave a message. Hey, I think Joe Blow was using a contractor that's his brother. He called, or something like that. If you have that, a lot of companies have that. It's a hotline. There's lots of different ways in bigger companies, but just something where people can leave a message, and somehow we have to communicate that to the to everyone that, here, if you suspect something, give us a call. It's sort of like a whistleblower kind of thing, but just, you're not going to get in trouble, if you're an employee of the city or that kind of thing.
I can certainly bring that back to the town council as your recommendation, and actually Scott will probably do that, but I can share this information with Scott, and he'll have the minutes from this meeting also.
Because in my opinion, if someone's cheating or stealing, it's not going to be overt. It's going to be clandestine and just...
But you might know, hey, that guy over there, I saw him do something, and call it in, and maybe it's nothing.
Yeah.
You can do the investigation and find out it's nothing, or it could be something big. You never know.
But would that relate to financial activity or just
Everything.
Who knows?
But that's going forward.
Yeah, going forward.
From behind, you want to just say, we're not doing it.
Yeah, based on the auditor's recommendation. And the attorney. And the attorney might be the person who would be responsible for that hotline. It's typically in companies, it's the lawyers who are responsible for it.
Are these, I don't even know if we're supposed to be talking into these. It doesn't sound like this one's on, but would you feel more comfortable if we had a motion like what Deborah just said?
I think the more official it is, I think the more weight it would carry. Then we could provide that back to the town council.
Well, I move the city set up a hotline to report issues. And communicate it to the, entire population. That's part of it too. You gotta make sure people are aware of it.
Would it be all issues, not just financial, like people parking in wrong places and stuff like that? Because that can get out of control. If you
Yeah,
see people
someone
start
will have
calling
to come up with a
everything.
list and better understand what should be, how it should be done. And maybe it's you and the lawyer, kind of come up with the wording for that.
You'll have to hire someone just to answer the phone all day.
Yeah.
Well, so you're suggesting a motion.
How
That
about
the-
coming up for a policy to create a hotline? How's that? Because at first you have to have the policy. You have to understand what people can report.
And look at it as a best practice. Things you use.
I'm just trying to think of how to word this. So, draft a policy. Oh boy, I'm not
I can
good
see
at.
what my company uses, how you do it.
See the motion. Deborah's
It's determining how to actually do it. So, yeah, it would be setting up a policy, researching it, I don't know, researching it to create a policy. And really, I would think it's going to be mostly used by Fort Myers Beach employees. But
So-
if you know something else, hey, I know he's getting a kickback or
financial matters.
Yeah.
illegal.
Would
I think you and the lawyer might be able to kind of walk through it because there are policies out there that are general that, other major companies probably could just pull right off the internet.
so I'm just trying to think of how to word this for the town council.
So I don't know if it's a move, if we're making a motion, we're just making a suggestion.
They,
We're just-
the audit committee is it too strong to say recommending, or would you prefer suggesting
I'm suggesting it.
or suggesting? So suggesting
And that might help alleviate their any issues they have.
that maybe that the
It goes back to having good internal control policies, so then the auditors can audit to them and then everything's okay.
something like suggesting that the town consider setting up
Yeah,
an anonymous tip line.
yeah, there you go.
Just financial.
For financial and legal matters. Okay.
I
That
do-
might be good enough to start with, and then of course it can be fleshed out depending on
Sure.
the input from the attorney and
And Joe, how about, or both of you, how about a motion that says that we reviewed a suggestion to have a forensic audit and have decided we will not do something like that at this time. We will not conduct that at this time. As a motion.
I'll second that motion. Jack, that's when you say all in favor.
Should what, call motion?
So there was a motion.
Yeah.
and
I
then
just
a
did the second one, I said,
So now you could say,
Okay.
all in,
Barb made
All
a,
in favor?
made a motion to suspend forensic or not pursue it,
not pursue it.
not pursue the forensic audit anymore, and it was seconded by Ms. Dalton.
so then you would
I
ask,
said at this time. There might be some time in the future this body would like to do that.
so your motion was you have reviewed a suggestion to have a forensic audit and have, was it have agreed or have decided? I can't remember the words you used. Have
Decided's better.
decided? Not,
There is no need for a forensic audit at this time.
There you go, that.
no need
Put finality to it.
for a forensic audit at this time. Okay, that's good.
And are we all in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Got that vote right.
And then you want to read the one for me?
So then I just started to write, the audit committee is suggesting that the town consider setting up, or maybe I should say, is establishing,
Establishing.
yeah, establishing an anonymous tip line for financial and legal matters
To report.
to report financial and legal matters. Is that
Issues.
issues? Okay.
Anybody second that one?
It's a motion?
I
Sure.
motioned it.
Sure, I'll second it.
So then you would,
Take a vote or
yeah, you would ask all in favor.
Alright.
Ask all in favor.
are all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Oh, okay.
Okay. Thank you for your input and advice on those. Then, okay, I already spoke about the accounting software. I'm still waiting for a response from our attorneys regarding the risks and costs related to upcoming demolitions planned by the town. I don't know why I have not heard. I imagine they're very busy, but I did remind them that I'm still waiting for an answer. I could tell you that we have determined that the funding for the demolitions would be, or could be, the bridge loan, since it can be used for operations and anything resulting from, especially additional costs resulting from the hurricane, and certainly having to do demolitions would fall in that category. So that would be an allowable use of the bridge loan. Other than that, I have nothing else to report to you.
Are we on to member items, or
Yes.
are there any member items or report? In reports? None? Okay. Then I vote to adjourn? Are we? Oh, no, it's, the next meeting is scheduled for Monday, May 13th at 9 a.m. Do we vote on that, or?
Well, I suppose if there's any concern, that's back to the second Monday of the month. That is typically when the audit committee meetings have been held, and they're trying to keep to a regular schedule so that it's just easier for the town clerk to manage the calendar.
Vote to adjourn?
Yes.
I'll move to adjourn.
Who seconds? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Wow, we got that done. Practice makes perfect. Huh?